Hello everyone, welcome to biology class, and the issue today is going to be the circulatory system. The circulatory system is a network of organs and tissues that uses blood to transport materials in the body. The circulatory system reaches every single cell in the body of an organism to take some materials in and some out of it. The materials that are transported into or out of these cells include the food substances, the hormones, waste products, and any other materials that are necessary for the body. To achieve transport of materials in the body, the circulatory system has important components. These components are the blood vessels, and also the heart. The blood carries the materials that are to be transported to different parts. The blood vessels are the channels through which these materials will go by the effort of the heart, which is the last part as the component of the circulatory system. The circulatory system takes blood to every part of the body to distribute the different materials. On so doing, it takes two different pathways. The first pathway is from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart, and the other pathway is from the heart to other body parts and back to the heart. The movement of blood from the heart to the lungs and back to the heart is what we call the pulmonary circulation, and the movement of blood from the heart to the other body parts back to the heart is known as the systemic circulation. Let's look at the movement of the blood into these two different categories or circulations. So we see the movement of blood from the heart to the lungs takes blood only to the lungs and back to the heart. The aim is to pick oxygen from the lungs and leave carbon dioxide in the lungs. So the blood that goes to the lungs has less oxygen. That means it has more carbon dioxide, and the blood that comes out of the lungs has more oxygen than the carbon dioxide. That makes the pulmonary circulation. The systemic circulatory system takes blood to the head, to the limbs, and the abdominal parts like the liver, the kidneys, and the intestines. The different components of the circulatory system work individually, but also work as a team to enable the movement of materials all over the body. Now, let's look at one after another: the blood vessels, and the heart, so that we can generalize and understand exactly what happens during transport of materials in the body by the circulatory system. Let's start with the blood. The blood comprises of the plasma and the blood cells. The plasma is a liquid which is a mixture of water and dissolved substances in it. The blood cells are of three types. We have the red blood cells, we have the white blood cells, and we have the leukocytes. The red blood cells are blood particles with red pigment called hemoglobin, which is used to transport oxygen and the carbon dioxide. In fact, hemoglobin is the carrier of the two gases. The white blood cells are the particles of the blood that fight against foreign bodies, meaning that it aids to the immunity of the body. And the blood platelets are the parts of the blood that are very important during blood clotting. They form clots and hence prevent more bleeding whenever a cut or whatever comes that causes bleeding. The second part is the blood vessels. Blood vessels are tubes through which blood flows. There are three types of blood vessels. We have the arteries, we have the veins, and we have the blood capillaries. The arteries are the blood vessels that takes blood from the heart to different body parts. The veins are the blood vessels that take the blood back to the heart. And the blood capillaries link between the arteries and the veins. What happens when blood comes from the heart? It is taken by a very big artery called aorta. The aorta branches into arterioles. These arterioles branch again into the blood capillaries. The blood capillaries then pour blood into the tissues where it goes into different body cells. After they do what was supposed to be done, this blood has to be taken back to the heart. So blood will collect into small vessels called the venules that will join to form the veins. All these veins are going to be collected in one big vein called vena cava that brings back the blood to the heart. After seeing these kinds of blood vessels, let's look at the differences between the two major types of the blood vessels, the arteries and the veins. The differences between the veins and the arteries are as follows. The arteries take blood away from the heart, while the veins take blood back to the heart. Most arteries carry oxygenated blood, while most veins carry deoxygenated blood. Remember, we have the pulmonary artery that carries deoxygenated blood, and we have the pulmonary vein that carries oxygenated blood. But again, the arteries have very thick walls because they carry blood with very high pressure, while the veins carry blood with very low pressure. Therefore, they have thin walls. Again, the arteries have narrow lumen, while the veins have a large lumen. The other difference between the arteries and the veins is that the arteries have no valves, but the veins have the valves. This is to prevent backflow of blood. Remember, the veins carry blood which has very low pressure. And the other difference between the arteries and the veins is that the arteries pass deep down the skin, while the veins pass just below the skin. And the last difference between the arteries and the vein is that the arteries carry blood that is with very high pressure, while the veins carry blood that has very low pressure. The last part of the circulatory system is the heart. As I said before, the heart is a muscular organ that pumps blood. It is located to the left of the thoracic cavity with the size of your fist. The mammalian heart beats approximately 72 times in 1 minute. The mammalian heart is divided into 4 chambers. You have the 2 upper chambers and the lower 2 chambers. The upper 2 chambers of the heart are called the auricles or the atria, and the lower 2 chambers of the heart are known as the ventricles. The heart is made of special muscles called the cardiac muscles. All over the heart, the masculinity of the heart is due to these cardiac muscles. You have the left ventricles having tough muscles than the right ventricles, simply because the left ventricle pumps blood all over the body, but the right ventricle pumps blood just to the lungs. That is why if you look at the heart, you find the left part of the heart is a bit tough as compared to the right one. But the heart also is surrounded by different blood vessels to supply blood to it. These blood vessels are called the coronary vessels. In fact, you have the coronary arteries and you have the coronary veins. So those are the 3 components of the circulatory system. the blood vessels, and the heart. And after seeing the components of the circulatory system, let's look at the last part of this show today. This is the mechanism of the heart, how the heart works. As I said before, blood from the different parts of the body enters the heart. It is received by the right auricle. The right auricle pumps it down to the right ventricle through the tricuspid valve. And when the left ventricle contracts, blood is pumped to the lungs through the semilunar valves. It goes to the lungs through the pulmonary artery. At the lungs, gaseous exchange takes place. Oxygen is taken into the blood, carbon dioxide is taken out of the blood. Then blood goes back to the heart. It goes back to the heart through the pulmonary vein. At the heart, it will be received by the left auricle. At the left auricle, blood is pumped to the left ventricle. Of course, it will pass through the bicuspid valves. And from the left ventricle, blood is pumped to all over the body. It will leave through a large artery called aorta. After the blood has been taken out of the heart, it will move to other body parts. After whatever happens there, it will go back to the heart through the vena cava again. This cycle repeats, and that tells how the heart works. In the mechanism of the heart, there is one point to note. The auricles contract together. Again, the ventricles contract together. They don't contract one after another. So you have the contraction of the auricles and the contraction of the ventricles. That is how the heart works. The contraction of the auricles is what we call the diastole, and the contraction of the ventricles is what we call the systole. So you realize the diastole causes the pulmonary circulation, and the systole causes the systemic circulation. That is all for today about the circulatory system. I hope you have understood, and of course you have enjoyed. Thank you for watching this show. See you next time.